Today we're doing a session on autism, and I am so very excited to have two special guests. We have Michelle Watson, who is a wife and a mother. She and her husband, CW, are the parents of an awesomely autistic 6-year-old son. Michelle is a native of Virginia, where she completed both her graduate and undergraduate studies and continues to call Virginia home. Michelle enjoys family time, connecting with friends, and prioritizing and finding ways to ensure that Super Q, her son, can become as independent as possible. We also have Miss Brandy Rucker with us today. And she has been and is a special education teacher. It's been 14 years. Wow, hats off. It takes a special person, Brandy.
Yeah.
And she's
Thank
with
you.
Richmond Public Schools. She is currently working as an early childhood special education teacher, providing developmental support for children in both public and private preschool centers for the city of Richmond. Brandy also works with an evaluation team to determine eligibility for special education services. So I just want to say welcome to Michelle and Brandy. Welcome.
Thank you.
And what
Thank
you
you.
guys don't know is that we've had some technical difficulties, so I thank them both for their patience. And we're just going to have a great session. And we're hoping that during this time of pandemic and racial civil unrest that's been impressed upon all of us around the world, that this is a session that will help other families. So we want to open up with, if there's any way, Brandy, if you could give us a little bit of a synopsis in defining autism for those who do not understand or have no understanding of what autism is.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for having me. I feel honored to be able to be on this platform today to talk to you guys and to anyone else out there who may need just, some support or advice when dealing with their child with autism. In a nutshell, autism is considered a spectrum disorder that can impact an individual's communication skills and or their behavior skills. It's considered it's considered a spectrum disorder because there's a wide variation of the severity of your symptoms in autism. You may have some children who have a hard time making eye contact. You also may notice that they have a hard time with expressing themselves using normal language. Also, sometimes they struggle with changes in routine. That's a big one. And I know a lot of parents are dealing with that right now while we're in the middle of this pandemic. We had a school abruptly ended and boom, they're faced with having to kind of get a routine going in their home environments. Also, a lot of autistic children have some sensory issues as it pertains to certain sounds. They may not like the sounds of loud noises. They also can be overstimulated by being in an environment where there's a lot of people. Also, they may have sensitivities to certain textures of foods, certain smells, things to that nature. And also, they may have a hard time understanding feelings, expressing how they feel about certain situations. And a lot of autistic children also have repetitive actions. They may constantly do a certain task. They're fixated on that certain task all day long. Or they may repeat phrases from favorite movies or from individuals that they've just had a conversation with, or something that they've heard on TV. They may constantly just mimic what they heard. So there's a wide variety of symptoms, but just know that it is a spectrum disorder. Some symptoms are more severe than others. But in a nutshell, whether you're higher functioning or lower functioning, it is autism.
Well, I'm sure that, thank you for that definition, Brandy, just giving us some background on what autism is.
Mhm.
Michelle, did you want to share or expand a little bit on what Q, the type of autism or symptoms that Q deals with, and
Sure.
how his diagnosis came about, So if you could give us some background with that, that'd be great.
Absolutely. I'll be glad to share. And again, thank you for having me as a part of this forum. My Q has regressive autism. He was developing and meeting all his milestones until about 18 months. He walked early, he was talking, he recognized his name, he could count to 20. And I recall being at Thanksgiving dinner at my mother-in-law's house, and she, being the proud grandmother of her only grandchild, prompted me to make Q count. So if I said 1, he would say 2 and go on up to 20. But this particular day, he said nothing, and I didn't think anything of it. I just figured, as a kid, they don't perform on command. Kids are funny like that. You could tell them to do something one day and they'll do it, and the next day they won't. So honestly, I didn't think anything about it. But as time progressed, he stopped doing the things that he used to do. He stopped counting. He stopped saying his name. He stopped answering to his name. And I was alarmed. I went to my pediatrician at his 24-month checkup and expressed my concerns, and he didn't believe me. He explained it away and said, autistic kids do this, or they can't keep still, and Clyde can do this and he can do that, and he didn't believe that he had autism. But I wasn't satisfied, so I called back um, to speak with him. He just happened to be out of the office, and I got his nurse practitioner who gave me some information. One was the phone number to the Children's Hospital, and the second was the phone number to early intervention. I called the Children's Hospital first, and it was the wrong number. So I said, okay, I guess early intervention for the county is it. And I called them. They brought us in for an assessment. I believe that was August. So this was right after his second birthday, so August of 2016. And they sent a general educational specialist to the daycare center once a week to work on skills to help him in daycare communicate better, trying to just engage him to talk more. But again, I knew that something wasn't right. His skills continued to regress, and I started doing some research, and autism kept popping up when I looked up children losing language. So again, the early intervention people never mention autism. So I started to look for someone to help us to figure out what was going on. There were only a couple of specialists in town, and the wait to see them was sometimes 10 to 12 months. I happened to come across a company who doesn't take insurance, so they got us in quicker. Someone canceled, and we were able to get in October of 2016, which is unheard of. And they diagnosed him with autism spectrum disorder. And as Brandy said, it is a spectrum. You will hear terms like lower functioning, higher functioning, severe. His diagnosis officially is autism spectrum disorder because it's a moving target. He is going to change as he ages, as he gets older. He also has some sensory needs. He doesn't like you to touch his head, so he won't wear a hat. He won't wear a mask in this pandemic. Haircuts are a struggle. And we have some issues with him wearing shoes, but that's gotten better. So we are trying to do things to help his sensory needs. And he also has apraxia of speech. He will sometimes say phrases that are totally appropriate to everything that's going on around him. But the disconnect between his brain and his mouth making the motions to actually talk, he struggles with that. But we know he is aware of everything in his environment because of those times when he does speak is absolutely appropriate to the things that are going on around him. And that's my cue in a nutshell. I love him to death.
And he is just as handsome as he can be, y'all.
Oh.
He is the cutest. Oh my God.
And kudos to you for fighting for him and advocating for him,
Oh,
because of,
yeah.
a lot of parents, will push it to the side, and, but so it's good that you noticed that and started getting him that help early on.
And as a first-time mom, I didn't have anything to compare it to. I just knew
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't doing the things that he was doing prior. He was like a different child.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. As in anything in life, acceptance and the press and the push. We know as mommies, we can feel that thing,
Mm-hmm.
when
Mm-hmm.
it's like something's just not connecting.
Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah.
I'm with Brandy. Kudos to you for, pushing past, almost feeling like you were being blown off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you did that, for the betterment of your son. So awesome. You know, so Michelle, we've known each other for a long time. So when I think about, some of the things that you were going through at that time with Q's diagnosis, I remember and recall you mentioning to me as you began to connect with support groups, you mentioned that some of the support groups for autism, they didn't resemble you. They didn't resemble me, us,
Mm-hmm.
as far as African Americans. And it was as if there's some sort of stigma um, against acceptance, I guess, of the diagnosis or support groups or something of that nature. Did you want to expand on your experience, I guess, and how how that came about as far as one of your experiences that hits home for you?
Absolutely. I don't think it's just limited to autism. For support groups, mental health is a stigma in our community anyway, and autism especially. Because if you think about the face of autism and what you see on television and the face of the organizations you are aware of, they don't look like us. They are white men who have a savant of some type of gift, and that's not all autism is. Most of the time they look just like us, unless they have extreme tics. An autistic person, you may not be able to tell that they're autistic just by looking at them. I was seeking answers. I was seeking a way to help my son, and I felt like I was on an island by myself, and I wanted to connect with other autistic parents to see what I could do to better help him, to try to not repeat some of the mistakes that they made. And I wanted to use it as a learning experience. And they were very friendly, but I was the only person of color there. And autism is prevalent in all races. It doesn't discriminate, but you would think that it only affects white people by what you see in the media, on the news, and on TV. So that's what led me there. Fortunately, lately, within the last month or so, I came across a group that I found out from a lady that I follow on Facebook, who details her journey of her severely autistic child. And she invites vloggers to come in and post on her site. And a woman posted about a Black autistic mom's support group on Facebook, and I have found my tribe.
Oh, wow.
These women are awesome. Not to say that the other resources aren't helpful, but it's something about when you connect with your own that's going through the same struggle, that understand the social stigma of mental health. And they've even given me some tips to help us with Q's more challenging behaviors that may prevent him from going out in the community. So I feel so grateful and blessed that I stumbled across this group, and they
Absolutely.
have been absolutely awesome. Those moms rock. They are warriors for their children.
Oh, that is so
Mhm.
awesome. Support, I mean,
Yeah.
it makes a world of difference. Absolutely
Yes.
really does. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now,
So,
Did you want to expand on? Did you want to expand on some of that, Brandy, or are we gonna go to the next one and then come back?
If we have time, I can touch on it just a little bit as far as my experience in the school system. I work on the evaluation team, as you mentioned earlier. So I am right there on the front lines when we're delivering news to parents that we're finding their child eligible under the category of autism. Some parents receive it well, some parents do not receive it well. And I find that the parents who do not receive the news well, they're afraid of having their child labeled, that there's a stigma around having a label over your child, in fear that they'll be, judged, or that their child will not be able to be in a regular classroom at school. So I have experienced some of that in my field. However, I think it just all boils down to a lot of us are just not aware of what autism really is. And it's just that they hear the term autism and they automatically go into panic mode. And, I think they're having support groups, as you mentioned, Michelle, are good for families who are unaware of autism. And, everybody can share their experiences of, how they navigate through everyday life. So yeah, that's it. That's just about, that's it.
So, I mean, in talking about the support, and thank you for expanding on that, Brandy, but and talking about and sharing in the way that you have about the support group and then, finding your tribe, I'm sure it's been totally different and a toss in your world with the pandemic. Share with us what that challenge has been like, post pandemic, versus pre pandemic, as far as your day to day. What is your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge is the fact that we lost our village. I'm a first time mom, I'm an older mom, so therefore my support is older. And we feared if we were exposed, passing it on to them could be detrimental. So we followed the CDC guidelines and we isolated. And isolating meant that I went 100 plus days without a break. I am working from home. My husband has to leave the home to go to work. So not only am I mommy 24/7, I try to do my job in between. And it has been a mental struggle for me. And I'm sure for my son, he misses going to school. He misses his friends. He doesn't understand why we don't leave the house every day anymore. Also, we have been very fortunate that when his school closed, the very next day, his ABA therapist was able to come to the house for 3 hours a day from 9 to 12. So he hasn't lost any therapy from that perspective, but we did lose other therapies that we did in person, like his occupational therapy and his speech therapy that has since gone to telehealth, which his therapist helps him with. He's had success. Some kids have not done well with virtual therapy, but he has done well with that. And in fact, the pandemic has provided some blessings because we are seeing progress in his natural environment that I don't know would have happened had he still been in that center base in that autism preschool. So it has been both a blessing and a curse at the same time. But Q is a fighter, and he's doing everything he can to come and be good in this thing. So he's doing all right. We're just dealing with it one day at a time, and that's kind of all any of us can do with the uncertainty of what's happening in the world right now.
You know what? He's blessed with two awesome parents. So,
Thank you.
I mean, that makes all the difference in the world. So I just thank you for, just taking the time out and being with us today to be able to share your journey. Because it takes special people, to do what both of you guys do. And I'm learning, just more and talking to you guys, and wow. So,
And also, I'd like to add, I forgot to mention, there are, as Michelle said, it's hard to find support groups, especially support groups that support African American families of with children with autism. But there are, if you can't find anything on your Facebook like you did, Michelle, there is the what's called the Color of Autism Foundation. It's the colorofautism.org, and they support families of color of children who have autism, and their goal is to end the stigma of autism. So I advise, families to go ahead and check out, reach out, and just see what they have to offer as well.
awesome. Thank you for sharing that information, Brandy. That is awesome. And I just, you know, with the humanitarian crisis that we're in right now, something else that was just thrown upon all of us, that we've been in, over time, but it's something that has come up, and there's just civil unrest, as far as racism. I just want to know, Michelle, in regards to having a special needs child, and with the civil unrest for police reform and all of those type things, how has that impacted, or has it impacted your hopes and your dreams and thoughts as pertaining to opportunities at a trusted level for independence for your son as he grows older?
Um, the civil unrest and what's happening in the world right now didn't really impact my fear when it comes to Q, because just like his dad, he's probably going to be a 6-foot black man, and I already am afraid for him. So it's translated to one day my son is going to be perceived as a threat. I pray for my husband when he leaves the house, and I'm sure I'm going to do the same for Q. But I absolutely trust God to cover them both. He's going to know from us and the people involved in his life, his village, that he can do anything, any and everything he wants. He's going to be exposed. We're going to be soccer players and baseball and basketball or ping pong or basket weaving or whatever he wants to do. He's going to know whatever he wants.
Yeah.
It's out there and it's available. And if I have to roller skate and sell hot dogs, then that's what I'll do to pay for it. He's going to have every opportunity, and that's just how we had planned to raise him before we knew his diagnosis. And as far as that, we have a college fund for him. If he doesn't get to go, then okay, he's going to have an awesome house when he gets married, because he's going to have that down payment. We're setting our child up for success by doing all of those things that we would do if he did not have autism.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is just something totally awesome that you just shared right there. I mean, that's a moment. That's just a moment for us to just sit on that one, because you're not moving in fear.
No.
Your love and your attention and your dedication,
Mm-hmm.
it was unchanging. It didn't change. It's unconditional.
That's right.
Wow.
And, I was an older first-time mom. So no, motherhood doesn't look like what I expected, but I still have my miracle. There's a whole lot of women out there who didn't get what I have. So autistic or not, I'm so grateful that God chose us to be his parents. And he picked us because he knew we could handle it, that we'd have the village to support us. And he's the light of my life and my husband's life. And we love him so much. And we want to do everything for him. So to set him up for success again. It's just a diagnosis. It's a moving target. He doesn't have to stay where he is right now. And as I said earlier, he's making progress.
Yeah.
And that's all we can ask for.
Absolutely.
If he ends up being basket weaver, he's going to be the best basket weaver you ever met.
I know that's
Right. That's right.
Come on, pull on through basket.
That's right.
Yes. Yes.
Now, Michelle, when we look at, where we are, in our country in so many different aspects right now, if there was anything that you could recommend or share with lawmakers regarding the safety of African American special needs children or young people, what would that be?
Two things. One is training, so that those
Mhm.
who are in power can recognize those traits of people on the spectrum, and not just autism, but other special needs categories.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
also make therapy more affordable so that families can get what they need for their children to, again, set them up for success. If we have training that erases the stigma both for the families involved and for the lawmakers, so that if their family is in a crisis, they won't hesitate to reach out for help for fear that their loved one will be killed because the person responding doesn't understand that, no, they're not being disrespectful.
Mhm.
They have autism and they don't
Mhm.
respond to their name, or they may not move as fast as you want, or
Yes.
recognize that this child is having a seizure. He is
Yes.
struggling with you. That's
Mhm.
the only thing that's going to fix this or make me feel better about what's happening. We need to get people engaged. Now, if we have to take our son to the police station so that they know who he is in our neighborhood,
Mhm.
I have a big old autism awareness sign in my yard, not because I'm putting my business out there, but I need my neighbors to be aware of what's
Mhm.
happening in our household if he becomes a runner. And he's not, praise God, he's not. But
Mhm.
awareness, training, and resources. That's the only thing that's going to help anybody in this
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. That's a
Totally agree.
Brandy.
No, I agree with everything you said, Michelle, and I think it's just important for, like you said, the police force or community members in general, just to have some kind of sensitivity training or understanding. Hey, every person is not going to react the way you want them to, but that doesn't mean they're being defiant or they're not complying with your request. And I think you brought up a good point where it's important for police officers who police certain communities to know who's in that community. If they ever come across a child who or someone who looks suspicious of doing something, but they may notice, hey, that's Johnny. Oh, I know Johnny's parents. I know Johnny has autism. Let me approach Johnny differently. I think it's important, like you said, maybe take a trip to the police department, let them know, introduce them to your child. And I think that's important because a lot of, as we've noticed lately, police officers are just reacting. They're not assessing the situation, they're just reacting, and they're killing innocent people, unnecessarily. So yes, I'm with you with the training and just having the police know who's in their community.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I guess we can start with you, Michelle. If there, what two or three, or one, two, or three, however many you decide, if you had some tips to give to parents of children who are or have been clinically diagnosed with autism, what would they be? What are some tips or some words of expression that you would have for them?
I guess I would start by saying, get therapy outside of school. School is designed to educate, not give your kid therapy. And a lot of families have discovered now that school had to close suddenly without warning. Our kids are uncovered. So they're not getting speech therapy, they're not getting occupational therapy or anything else because they were relying on the school system to fill the need for those issues. And it's great when school is open, but you're also leaving yourself uncovered when school is not in session in the summertime and winter breaks and spring breaks and all that kind of stuff. Find your own set of therapists, and they can work together with the school system to get your child where they need to be. I would also say, get you a trusted village, whoever that consists of. Mama and daddy need a break. and your kid needs a break from you too. Find people that you trust. Make sure everybody's on the same page doing the same thing. And again, that sets your child up for success. And lastly, I would say for those who've been diagnosed clinically with autism, don't fall for gimmicks. A lot of parents are desperate to help their child, and their people know that. So they're marketing things to us that cost a whole lot of money, that don't do a hill of beans for your child. You should have good nutrition. But for some parents, we're just glad that our child eats. So changing their diet may not necessarily work for what's going on in your household. Make sure that whatever you do for your child is evidence-based and not out of fear.
Wow. Okay, Dr. Michelle.
Yes, that's
Awesome.
great. Yes, yes.
Really, what tips would you have? You know, this being your career, this is what you do. So
Yes, yes, absolutely. And first and foremost, my first tip I would like to say is, especially to families who are new to this and who have a child who has just been diagnosed, do not let the diagnosis define your child. Okay, yes, your child may have autism. Your child is on the autism spectrum disorder. However, your child is an individual first. Okay, and you need to remember that, and do not identify as your child as autistic first. And I don't know if that makes sense, but what I mean by that is, when you're talking about your child to someone, talk about your child as that individual first. Hey, my son Johnny is 5 years old. He loves boats. He loves cars. He loves trucks. He's into, XYZ, but he also has autism. Try not to put that autism label first. And when you do that too, and it also will help your child grow as an individual and realize, hey, I'm more than autism. I have so much more going on for me. Yes, autism is a part of me, but autism is not me. So I think that's very important for families to understand, as well as for their children to understand as well. Michelle actually gave one of the tips that I was going to suggest as well, is to seek additional support. Yes, you can get private therapies through your medical insurance, but you can also receive therapies in a school setting. And I think it's important too, and I know a lot of families do not understand this. There is a difference between a medical diagnosis of autism, and then you have what you call an educational diagnosis of autism. Okay, so for example, if you have a child who has a medical diagnosis of autism and they're registered for public school, the public school has to do their own set of evaluations to find them eligible for services under an educational diagnosis, because we have to find that the autism is impacting their academics in order for the school system to provide those services. So like Michelle said, make sure you're getting all you can. In addition to the public school supports, also seek out your private supports. And then lastly, I would suggest to parents to find that local support group. I know there's one that supports families in Henrico and Chesterfield called the Autism Society of Central Virginia. It's ascv.org, and they hold meetings twice a month. And so I just advise you, find your group. Like she said, find your village, find your support groups, and that's it.
Yeah, I really love what you shared, Brandy, in regards to, you basically said write your own narrative. You're telling the parents to write your own narrative, and that we don't have to lead with autism or with whatever each of our challenges maybe in our lives. We don't have to lead with that. We can write a different narrative, not that we're not living in the reality of what our challenges are, but we want to have the most normal life that we can have to give that to our children. So it's like, hey, it's super cute. It's not cute with autism. It's super cute, you know. Period.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a
And then
superhero.
we work towards the rest.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome. I,
yeah.
I love it. What would you guys,
Uh-oh.
what is a tip or something that you guys would say to those parents who have not, have either walking in fear of the diagnosis, or who have not had their children clinically diagnosed, but they know that they're dealing with that issue? Or maybe it's one of the parents, like someone that actually met with, Brandy, who was in a place of denial, right? What would you guys say to those parents at this time?
I would say don't be afraid.
Yeah,
There's power in the diagnosis in itself.
yes.
Your medical insurance doesn't cover the services unless you have a clinical diagnosis of autism. Take the power back. Don't let it define you, as Brandy said. Just don't be afraid. You don't know what you don't know until you actually walk it out like you do anything else. It's going to be okay. There's lots of examples of successful autistic people in society. And we have a lot to look up to and to look forward to. I would also say early intervention. The studies have shown early intervention gives your child the best chance of success. And I think that speaks for itself. Just like any other diagnoses for any other disorder, the earlier you catch it, the better off you are.
Yep.
And again, it's going to be okay. I understand the fear, and I was there, but I needed to get help for my child, and
Yeah.
it's not about me.
Yes. Yes. And I agree with you 100%. And if you notice anything that you makes you go, that's a little odd, or that doesn't seem quite right. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed. Speak up for your child. If you don't know, talk to the pediatrician first and foremost. And I know, like you said, Michelle, sometimes they don't have our best interest, but you never know. Just bring it to their attention. They can refer you to a developmental specialist, or just start somewhere. And if you don't know where to start, or if you just still are unsure about talking to your pediatrician or anyone about it, there is something called and this is for my families of young children. There's called the MChat. And Michelle, you may be aware of this, but it's a screening tool that you can do yourself, just to kind of see, hey, it's a screening just to see, hey, maybe my child may be on the autism spectrum. And you can find that screening on the Autism Speaks website, which is autismspeaks.org. And just like Michelle, as you said, I was going to mention also, early intervention is key. Do not put it off. Do not put it off. Studies show that early intervention really, really helps students learn how to cope and learn how to navigate their world with autism. And also, early intervention is not just for the student. Early intervention is also for the parents and the families. A lot of what I do is I not only work with students, but I also consult with the parents, so that's the key. The first key is just don't shun it. Don't put it behind you. Acknowledge it, own it. It is what it is. And you'll find that, honestly, there's a lot of autistic people out here. A lot. It's more common than you think it is. So, I mean, there's a plethora of supports and services out there. You just got to go get it. Yeah. That's it.
You guys are sharing a wealth of knowledge today. And what I want to know is, and we're about to wrap it up, but I want to give you guys an opportunity to give us any closing thoughts that you may have. Michelle, any closing thoughts that you have? I just, you are the epitome of a super mom.
Thank you.
I mean, I admire all that I know you do on a daily basis that your average person, I'm sure, would probably be pulling all of their hair out and probably just run away from the reality of what life is. And you wear it well, you do it well. And
Thank
I have never heard you complain. Um, yeah, I just, any closing thoughts that you want to give us? Anything?
I have my days um, where I do ask God why, just in the moment of transparency. But a couple Sundays ago, I watched Joyce Myers by mistake. I haven't watched her in years. And she said, replace that why with, God, I trust you. So from that moment on, that's been how I have approached this. Like, okay, Lord, you gave him to me, so I trust you to get him where he needs to be. Find your place, your peaceful place, whether you're a Christian or a Muslim or whatever it is. Find you something that's bigger than you, and that's how I'm approaching the Q. He's bigger than me. He's a miracle just by the fact that he's here, and I was 45 when I had him. And he's not an accident. He's not a mistake. It's not anything that I did wrong. He is the way God designed him to be. Walk in his diagnosis. He's more than autistic, as Brandy said. He is our super Q. And I would encourage all families who may think, because if you're wrong, at least you can put your mind at ease. And if you're right, the earlier you get in there, the faster he'll be driving your cars and spending your money. So, like any parent, fight for your kid.
Yeah.
And in fighting for him, you're fighting for you, because you setting him up for success allows you to make sure he gets what he needs and, pay it forward too. So hopefully his life is a testimony, and he can give his own testimony one day of what they said he couldn't do, or what the doctor wouldn't listen to me about. You don't have to listen to me. He can tell you himself.
Yes.
And if the shoe doesn't fit, if you don't have the right therapy that you feel is working for your family, find somebody else. There's enough people out here that you don't have to be stuck with a bad provider. Do your research, ask questions, and like anything else, just walk it on out, and it's gonna be all right. And
Yeah.
Well, there you have it, the one with the miracle baby.
that's
I
right.
know he's a miracle baby.
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
That's a walking miracle right there. I know that
Yes,
for a
he
fact.
is.
Yes, absolutely. Brandy, if you had any closing thoughts, what would you want
Yeah.
to
I know right now we are all we're in some difficult times right now with this pandemic and you know everything else that's happened in 2020. I don't know what's going on with 2020, but I'll be glad when we get out of here. However, just stay focused. Do not let what we're dealing with now kind of burden what you have at home. You know what I'm saying? So what I mean is I was crushed when they closed schools initially because it was newsflash to all of us. And I was crushed because one, I'm thinking about my own children, gosh, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And then I'm thinking about the babies that I service every day that they need me, they need me. However, do not get overwhelmed with trying to wear all of the hats. Yes, I know right now, you may think, hey, I gotta be mom, I gotta be teacher, I gotta be all of these people right now. But right now, your babies need you as a mother. They need to know that you love them. They just need that affection that you give them every day. And as an educator, I would rather have a child who has a great mental, is comfortable or stable mentally, versus having a child who has been neglected at home, hasn't had any love or support at home. And I'm not asking parents to turn into teachers. That is not the expectation. However, if you choose to do something additional academically with your kid, great. But just be there to love on your kid right now. Hug them, talk to them about what's going on. So when they come back to us, they will welcome us. They'll come back ready, and we're ready to rock and roll. And we do not have to repair some of the damage that may have been done at home, you know, because that was one of my biggest fears too, is like, gosh, what is going to happen to those babies who are, you know, who come from homes where there's a lot of neglect or a lot of verbal abuse, physical abuse, you know, all of those things I think about. And I just ask for you to be there for your children during this time.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you what, this has been a wholesome experience today. Again, I thank you both, you know, for taking time out of your busy schedules. Regardless of all of us being in pandemic, we all have families, you know, to take care of. And, you know, this is something that, you know, God impressed upon my heart. And each of us are taken away from our families to do this. And I thank you for taking my invitation on and sharing this time with me today. Um, Kudos to you both for all that you do. And you're an asset to our society. You're an asset to, you know, as a friend. You're an asset to know. And I just encourage you both to continue to do what you do. And we hope that we're able to touch the hearts of those who are able to experience this video on autism. So blessings to you all and your families.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
My pleasure.
Mhm.